Hello, I'm Jenna. This is Jenna from Merida, Certified Divorce Financial Analyst at the Tranel Financial Group. We are going to talk about the second main issue that people are faced with when going through divorce. So the previous one we talked about was finances, right? Finances and communication.
Correct.
Huge deals. We all know that. We all understand that. The second thing, though, that brings up a lot of emotions and has a lot of weight to it is the actual property separation, right? How are we going to divvy up what we've created in our lives?
Correct.
Right? That's emotional. And I'm going to turn to Jennifer and I'm going to ask her how, as a certified divorce financial analyst, normally you don't think about property separation and stuff of that nature and bringing in a financial analyst to that. How do you play a role in helping to emotionally and physically divide these things up?
Well, property isn't in the sense of your home. That is
There,
one
yes,
of the
yes,
pieces, but property is your assets. So property is your checking and savings and
Love it.
retirement funds and your house. So that's one of your biggest assets along with retirement funds. And then anything else that was brought in, inheritances, but even, actual physical stuff in your house. So there's a lot that goes around, goes along with the property asset separation.
Okay.
But I want everybody to think,
So I need to
what
call
are
it
we talking
property
about?
asset separation. Property
Yes.
asset separation. Got it.
Correct.
Got it.
So let's talk about it. So we said the first two things that were the biggest areas of contention or areas that have the largest assets are the house
Okay.
and then the retirement.
Okay.
So when we look at, let's back up and go through what is marital and what's not marital.
Perfect.
So I'm going to rewind. But what is marital and what is non-marital? So when you get married on that date,
Okay.
you may have some assets that you already brought into the marriage.
Absolutely. I hope so.
And then you're going to start to accumulate other assets
Together.
or add into
Okay.
assets that you already have.
Okay.
So anything that you have before that you do not put the other person's name on, so let's just stick with a basic savings account.
Okay.
You've built up the savings account and then you do not put the other person's name on it after you get married.
Okay.
And you never put in wages earned, any marital wages that were earned during the marriage
Okay.
in that. So that just stayed that $10,000 and it grew separately.
Okay.
That's going to be separate property.
Okay.
That's not going to come into the equation.
Okay.
So anything that's separate. So you have a retirement fund that you never touch. It was from an old job. That's going to be separate.
Okay.
If it was before marriage.
That makes sense.
Now, anything that you earn. So if you have a husband and wife and the wife stays home and the husband is working and they're putting into a 401k and you're married, that is going to be a marital asset. So a lot of times when you're getting divorced, you're like, well, hey, I earned that. I did this. And we start doing I statements. We really have to come back and say, okay, well, everybody puts into the marital responsibilities, and maybe that responsibility was staying home, raising the kids,
Absolutely,
taking care of all of the other craziness that you stay-at-home moms go through, which is insane.
Oh my gosh. So much credit over there.
That's the hardest job in the world. But that is the most important job. And
Right.
then the other person is going and having the wages and earned income.
Absolutely.
All that's going to be marital. And the 401k that was built is also marital.
Okay.
And the pension that is built, that sometimes the pension is nothing that maybe you can separate now. Maybe that's not due until you're 65. But what was put in or earned, even if they didn't put any money in, is also going to be marital.
Okay.
And that has to be valued. So a sum of, say you're going to get $1,000 a month when you turn 65 in retirement,
Okay.
that is worth something now.
Okay.
So it can be worth something then as well, and splitting that up. But if that's not possible, that can be present valued.
Okay.
And you put a value on it and then figure out a calculation or just really how do you map together an option to quantify that and make sure that that's taken into consideration of the marital assets.
And you do that, right?
I
You
do.
have the tools. Okay.
I do. I have the tools. I have a calculator.
So you'll ask for both sides and you'll literally go through and separate.
and say what it's worth.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
And go through the plans and everything as well.
Okay.
So those are just examples of, I hope that you can see what would be marital and what would be non-marital. Another non-marital asset, it would be an inheritance.
Okay.
I think we talked about this before.
Probably.
But inheritance that comes in, so say parents passed away and the wife got $1 million. And that $1 million is then not really touchable. It's not going to be a marital asset as long as it didn't go, to anything. You didn't commingle that. That is going to be separate, but maintenance is based on need.
Oh,
and
okay.
actually, if maintenance is based on need, but also if you're going to split something, so if the assets are split, sometimes they're split like 40-60
Okay.
instead of 50-50.
Yep.
If there's a need. In this case, they might say, hey, you have that $1 million to pull from. You're going to be self-sufficient.
Right.
You have that asset. Yeah, the other person isn't going to get it, but you're also not going to get any more of the marital estate.
Correct. Okay.
So
That
that's
makes sense.
where those come into play. So we can talk about then the house.
Right.
So how is that a marital asset? Everybody's like, well, I have a huge mortgage on this house, right? You always think of it as a debt.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes. Yep.
But as you pay that down, if your house is worth $300 and you only owe $100,000 on there, then there's $200,000 that is an asset. So if somebody is staying in the home, they need to figure out, and they need to have really just some creative options built.
Okay.
To say, okay, well, if I stay in the home, I need to somehow pull out $100,000 and give the other person $100,000 of their equity. That's
Got
an
it.
asset.
Okay.
$100,000, where are you going to get that from?
Right.
You know, most people don't have that in savings. If you're lucky enough to have that, awesome. Most people don't. So can we get creative with refinancing?
Okay.
We have awesome representatives in the mortgage area that know how to handle people that are going through divorce and get the best rates and be able to get the best options. So there's one way.
Absolutely.
Other times people want to pull it from a retirement asset, which seems awesome until you realize that the house and the proceeds from the house won't be taxed. In most cases, there's an exclusion, $250,000. We can get into that later. But in most cases,
Very
that's
knowledgeable.
not taxed. But the retirement is taxed, and if you're under 59 and a half, there's a penalty, right? So you're not comparing apples to apples, but you can get creative. It just is not as easy as it looks.
Well, of course. And that's why
And you want to know what you're giving up, or, you know, do we have to bring another number down to compensate for the taxes?
Absolutely.
And we go through all those options. But
But
it's
that's why
really
they work
important.
with you. Like, that's literally to a T why they work with you. You're saying
Exactly.
all of these complex situations, and they seem complex to me or the viewer, but really to you, that is something simplified that you do every single day, and you're able to help recognize a lot of those and really build out certain scenarios too. And then
Yeah,
you correspond then
seeing
with the lawyer
options.
at that point to then help draft. Okay. So you're
And
very
why.
integral, and you're very integral to that. Okay.
Because sometimes the lawyers can look at it and they say, well, it's just this. Like, they see it very black and white, which is great, but they see so many cases. This is black and white. And you have an emotional connection to the house, or you don't want your kids to move. And maybe we all know financially it's better if you move.
Fair.
But can we make other options work that you can keep you and the kids in the house and everybody's going to be okay? Negotiations, not everybody wins, but we get to the most ideal. And if you're informed on what that means and what you're giving up, or, you know, what the other person's gaining, that's the best case scenario.
Okay, awesome. So if you guys have any further questions, reach out to Jennifer. As you can tell, she just exemplified her knowledge on the situation and how she can help best describe a scenario for you, right? Not everyone, as you said, there are a lot of times where you can fit into multiple different categories. Jennifer is going to figure out how to best make that plan customized to you. So what we encourage you to do, listen to the previous issue that we talked about, which was finances and how Jennifer plays a role in that. And then also play upon this. Upcoming, we're going to have emotions and children, which are just huge when going through, especially when you're in the heart of going through a divorce. Okay. So be on the lookout for the next main issue of how a certified divorce financial analyst can help you. If you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to Jennifer or stop by our office.
Sounds good.
Have a great day.